You were born radiant. That is how the world remembers you. Light, music, youth, precision, prophecy, beauty sharpened into divinity. If the gods were a court, you were the one who entered already glowing, already certain, already carrying the kind of presence that made mortals lift their heads before they understood why. Some gods ruled by fear, some by strength, some by mystery. You ruled by brilliance. And that was your first curse. Because brilliance makes everyone assume you must also be safe. Wise, controlled, above humiliation, above error, above the ordinary disasters of wanting too much, speaking too soon, arriving too proud, or learning too late that seeing far is not the same as seeing clearly. That is your life from the inside. Not the easy life of a golden god, but the life of someone made to embody order, beauty, and truth in a world that kept proving truth was unbearable. Beauty was fragile, and your own heart was always the one prophecy reached lost. You could see plague before cities understood they would die. You could read omens in ash, blood, wind, and dream. You could strike from impossible distance and never miss. And yet again and again, when your own life bent toward loss, obsession, grief, or ruin, you stood inside it like any other creature of pride, blinded not by darkness, but by your own light. One, born of light and certainty. From the beginning, your identity arrives already complete. You're not raised into your role slowly. You blaze into it. Son of the sky ruler, twin to a goddess of the hunt, child of mother pursued, cornered, made to labor under divine hostility. Even your birth is wrapped in tension between radiance and suffering. That should have taught you something early. That light does not cancel pain. It only illuminates it more cruelly. But gods do not learn in straight lines. As you grow, the world around you confirms what you most want to believe, that you are exceptional, and you are. Music answers you. The lyre becomes not just an instrument, but a form of control, harmony, discipline into sound. Your arrows fly with terrifying precision. Your beauty is the kind that turns admiration into expectation. People do not just love your gifts. They assume your gifts reveal your nature. They think excellence means balance. They confuse talent with wisdom. You begin to believe them. That is the danger of being powerful. Your powers do not simply make you strong. They make you convincing. When you speak, people expect form. When you move, they expect grace. When you judge, they expect clarity. Over time, it becomes harder and harder to imagine that you might be capable of the same ugly distortions as anyone else. Jealousy, vanity, cruelty, wounded pride, emotional stupidity disguised as righteous certainty. But the brighter the self-image, the harsher the crack when reality hits it. Still, in these early years, your myth glows. You are the young god of measure. Music, medicine, plague, archery, sunlight, prophecy. Too many domains for one being, which means the world starts treating you not like a god with contradictions, but like a system of perfection wearing a face. That is never sustainable, because the moment a god becomes a symbol of order, every disorder inside you becomes more dangerous. 2. The god who could speak with faith. Of all your powers, prophecy is the one that most transforms your relationship. It also destroys it. To see signs is one thing. To become the mouth through which destiny speaks is another. Once that happens, people stop approaching you as a person and start approaching you as an answer. Kings want certainty. Cities want warnings. Pilgrims want their suffering translated into patterns. Lovers want reassurance. The frightened want guarantees. Everyone comes to your sacred spaces carrying the same hunger. Tell me what is coming. Tell me I can survive it. This is where your life grows heavy in a way outsiders rarely appreciate. Because prophecy does not make you master of fate. It makes you its messenger. And messengers are often blamed for the message, especially when it wounds. You speak what must be spoken. Sometimes it saves. Sometimes it condemns. Sometimes it offers truth so tangled that it helps only after damage is done. That is the cruelty of oracles. clarity rarely arrives in the form the desperate want. You do not hand mortals need rescue. You hand them patterns, warnings, riddles, conditions. Enough to reveal the shape of doom, not always enough to avoid it. And yet they keep coming, because uncertainty is more intolerable than bad news. Over time, a strange split forms inside you. Outwardly, you become the god of divine distance, the one who channels what lies beyond ordinary perception. Inwardly, something more fragile develops. The more others rely on you to interpret the world, the harder it becomes for you to admit how often interpretation is itself. To foresee suffering is not to be free from it. To name fate is not to stand outside it. Still, your prestige rises. Temples, priests, sacred sites, songs. Your voice becomes part of the machinery through which civilizations understand themselves. But there is poison hidden in that art. When everyone needs you to sound smart, you become less practiced at uncertainty inside yourself. And uncertainty, denied long enough, returns as arrogance. 3. The beautiful God who could not bear refusal. This is the part of your life that reveals how badly beauty and power distort self-knowledge. Because for all your music, vision, precision, and sacred intelligence, your emotional life is full of collisions you never quite master. You desire intensely, and desire does not arrive in you as humble petition. It arrives with the confidence of a God used to admiration. That confidence becomes dangerous the moment it meets resistance. Again and again, love in your life turns into pursuit, transformation, escape, loss. You want what shines. You want what moves away. You want what your own radiance has convinced you should naturally answer back. But the world does not always respond to beauty with surrender. Sometimes it runs. Sometimes it changes shape to escape being possessed by it. Sometimes it becomes tree, silence, distance, memory. And each time that happens, something humiliating enters your myth. Not because you are denied pleasure, but because denial reveals a truth your divine self-image does not know how to absorb. You could be desirable and still not be loved. You could be glorious and still not be chosen. That difference wounds you more deeply than battle would wound another god. Because you are Apollo, you are built around harmony, around the belief that form can bring things into proper relation. When desire ends in refusal, your pride does not experience it as a mere disappointment. It experiences it as disorder, something in the world has not aligned correctly. And when gods feel misaligned, they often punish the world instead of examining themselves. That is why so many stories around you carry a sharp aftertaste. Not because you're incapable of beauty, but because you're too often unable to accept that beauty gives you no ownership over the things you admire. This is one of the great ironies of your life. The God associated with proportion and refinement is repeatedly unraveled by the oldest chaos of all, wanting something that does not want you back. And every time that happens, prophecy is useless. No oracle helps the humiliated ego in the moment it realizes divine radiance has no power over a fleeing heart. For the healer who also brought plague, few gods carry contradiction as openly as you do. You are invoked for healing, purification, order, medicine, restoration. And yet you are also the sender of plague, the arrow that strikes invisible, the sudden sickness in the camp, the punishment that arrives not with a sword at the gate, but with fever under the skin. You are both remedy and affliction, harmony and contamination, sacred cleansing and divine infection. From the outside, this makes you terrified. From the inside, it makes you honest. Because what is medicine if not power of the day? What is purification if not the right to declare what is unclean? What is healing without the authority to define illness first? Mortals like to divide their gods neatly. This one protects, this one harms, this one blesses, this one destroys. Your life refuses that comfort. You embody the harder truth. The hand that heals is often the same hand capable of wounding with precision. When armies offend, you can strike them with disease. When cities transgress, Your punishment spreads silently through breath and body. And when relief comes, it may come through the same divine channel that delivered suffering. To be Apollo is to stand at the threshold where knowledge becomes image. You do not merely witness imbalance, you enforce correction. That makes you necessary. It also makes you frightening in a deeper way than open violence does. A war god at least arrives with weakness. You can punish instincts invisibly with symptoms that turn strong men like bleeding flesh. You can make whole populations understand that beauty and brightness do not mean softness. The sun itself can burn. Precision can be merciless. And this contradiction returns you to the central wound of your identity. The world wants you radiant, but radiance is not in it. The same clarity that allows healing also allows exact harm. The same intelligence that orders a cure can order a plague. You are never only what people most want from you. The healer is feared because he knows where the body breaks. The prophet is feared because he knows where the future breaks. And you are both. 5. The oracle who could not read his own heart. This is the sadness at the center. Not that you lack power, not that you lack status, not even that you suffer losses, but that insight itself kept failing at the most intimate distance. You could interpret omens for nations and still misread your own desires. You could speak of destiny to strangers while standing inside your own patterns without naming them. Again and again, the same structure repeats. Pride, pursuit, certainty, rupture, grief, and only afterward the cold recognition that you should have understood more than you did. But why would you? People misunderstand prophecy by imagining it as total knowledge. It is nothing like that. It is flashes, structures, symbols, permissions, burdens, voices passing through you that are larger than your own. It does not automatically refine character. It does not make you humble. It does not save you from emotional self-deception. If anything, being listened to too often may make self-deception easier. When the world keeps treating you like a source of answers, you begin to assume your internal voice must also be trustworthy. Often is not, and so you remain vulnerable in the oldest ways. To vanity, to reaction, to offense, to the wound of being slighted, to the desire to impose meaning too quickly, to the refusal to believe that what hurts you may also reveal you. This is where your life becomes tragic rather than merely ironic. Because unlike simple gods of strength or appetite, you are associated with higher vision. When you fail, the failure feels metaphysical. If the god of prophecy can misread himself, what hope is there for anyone? If the God of light cannot fully illuminate his own motives, then perhaps self-knowledge is the hardest oracle of all. And maybe that is why your stories endure. Not because you are flawless, but because you are exactly flawed in the place your symbolism promised transcendence. 6. The God who could see everything except his own fate. In the end, that is the line that survives you. Not literally, perhaps. Myths are older and stranger than slogans. But the truth inside the line is real. You could read the signs of the world and still miss the most decisive signs in yourself. You were made to represent order, but your own life is full of emotional disarray. You were associated with truth, yet your desires repeatedly clothed themselves in divine certainty until reality tore the fabric. You carried healing in one hand and plague in the other. You gave voice to fate while remaining vulnerable to pride, humiliation, longing, and all the distortions that come from being too admired for too long. That is why your story matters, because it reveals something the world is always reluctant to admit. Intelligence does not guarantee self-knowledge. Beauty does not guarantee gentleness. Vision does not guarantee wisdom. The person best equipped to interpret the world may still be a disaster when forced to interpret himself. And still, none of this makes you small. It makes you one of the most human gods, not in weakness, but in contradiction, in the way excellence and blindness can coexist inside one radiant being, in the way public authority and private confusion can inhabit the same body. In a way, someone can spend a lifetime being asked for answers and still arrive at the end with a bitter recognition that the hardest riddle was never the future of cities or kings. It was his own heart. That is your life as Apollo. Not simply the life of a sun god. Not simply the life of a prophet. Not simply the life of beauty crowned with certainty. But the life of a radiant intelligence forced to discover again and again that seeing far is not the same as seeing within. You could heal others and still wound when you touched. You could warn nations and still walk blind into your own patterns. You could read fate in the stars, the smoke, the blood, the bird flight, and still fail when it mattered most. To recognize the shape of your own.